Hi, everyone. It's Kelly from Tutor Hustle for Teachers, and welcome to our Saturday morning Zoom chat. I'm so excited that you're here. This morning, we're going to be talking about transitioning from a teacher in the classroom, so working as a full-time teacher in the classroom, to having your own tutoring business and leaving the classroom to become a full-time tutor. It's a big jump. And somebody had asked this question in the chat. Katie, was it you, Katie, that asked this question?
Yes, it was me.
Okay, good. Oh, I'm glad you're here then. Okay, good. Thanks
Yes,
for
of
asking,
course.
Katie. Yeah, that's a really good question because I think that when I was first starting my business, and I should tell you, okay, first let me back it up a bit and tell you I'm about in December, so the end of December, I will be 10 months out of teaching, like fully resigned from teaching. And so I'm about no, I'll be 1 year. So I'm 10 months right now. I'm 10 months fully resigned from teaching right now. So at the end of December will be my first year fully resigned from teaching and doing tutoring full time. But I don't really do it full time because I don't and I'll get into that. I have like my maximum hours that I really do, and then I've sort of focused on other things. So I can talk a little bit about that in a minute, but I think your question is really good because when you are first thinking about leaving the classroom and you're first thinking about starting a tutoring business and you like Google it and see all these other tutor coaches and stuff, I see like the only thing I see is like I've replaced my teaching income and you can replace your teaching income in this super short time, and it's like all these big promises, and that's not necessarily true. No, and I sent an email out with the pit pony video. I don't know if you got that email. With the and I don't have it to put in the chat, but I'm gonna if you Google pit pony teacher or Google Sharon Crawley, because she's the person who made the video, and I can actually put her name in the chat. Sharon Crawley. She's like so amazing. She's from England and she has so much really just like real advice for teachers. She doesn't pull any punches. She tells you like it is. So anyway, she created this video called, it's known as the Pit Pony video. And if you Google it, it'll come up as that. And she created it, I think, during the pandemic. And it was because so many teachers were wanting to leave teaching in the UK. And I mean, this is true all over the world now, right? In the United States, it's happening. It's starting in Canada, which is like, oh my gosh, we didn't think it would happen here, but it is. And so it's happening all over. And she made this video, and it's like, it's so good because she goes really deep into some teacher trauma. So I got to give you a trigger warning on that, because if you've experienced teacher trauma, like it can be a little bit upsetting to hear what the people have gone through. If you've gone through it yourself, and I have, it was like, oh my God, that's, when you hear someone else say it, it sounds that much worse. Then you realize, oh, that happened to me. But anyway, so there's a bit of that, but she gives you a blueprint for leaving the classroom. And she doesn't promise that you're going to make all these millions of dollars tutoring or anything like that. She tells you like really realistically what you need to do, and she tells you how to budget your money, how to plan your money, and like just you have to watch the video. It's so good. She gives you a really realistic blueprint, and she tells you like, yeah, you're going to have less money at first. And it's going to take a while to build it up, but it's so worth it. I'm just going to let in, we have another person here joining us. We'll say hi to them. And hello, thank you for joining us. And yeah, so watch the Pit Pony video and take note of that blueprint that Sharon Crawley gives you for leaving the classroom, because I think it is really good and really realistic. So for myself, I was a teacher in Toronto. I know we have some people from Toronto joining us today. And in Toronto, Ontario, teachers make, more money than in other parts of the world, especially in other parts of the United States. So we make about on par, from what I understand, on par with probably a teacher in New York City, if we're going to put it in American terms. So I was teaching full time and I was at the top of the salary grid. So I was one of the top paid teachers in Ontario. I was on the sunshine list. So that means that here in Ontario we have in Ontario, Canada, where I live, the government publishes the names of all the people who work for the government that make over $100,000 on what they call the sunshine list. So everyone can look at it and say, oh my God, my tax dollars are going to that. But anyway, I was on that list, and I was making over $100,000 Canadian, which is about like 70, 80,000 US. So it was, a pretty good amount of money. Now in Toronto, which is a really expensive city to live in, that's not actually that's not a lot of money to live on if that's your only income. But because the city
Tutor.
is so expensive. But that's what I was making. So I was like terrified to leave for 10 years. Really, I wanted to leave teaching and I was terrified because where else am I going to make that kind of money? And I felt like I have to replace my salary. I can't leave until I can replace my salary. And that's kind of like that's probably not gonna happen. The first For some people it has. I'm not gonna say that impossible to happen because I know tutors who have like doubled, tripled, quadrupled their salary before they even left the classroom. So it is possible to do that. But for me, it was not possible because the classroom was just sucking up so much of my time and energy. And I think that's a reality for most teachers that I didn't have too much left to put into my business to grow it enough to replace my income. So and even now, like you have to take in a lot of things into consideration. Like I want to spend more time with my family. That was one of my decisions to leave. I want to spend more time
Right.
taking care of myself. That was another decision to leave. So I'm not really I don't want to be tutoring like 30 hours a week, but that's my own personal decision. And fortunately,
I
I
don't
should
know.
say, yeah, I'm not the only
Maybe.
income earner in my house, and that's another thing to take into consideration. Everybody's situation is different, right? So I'm not the only income earner in my house, so I have a little bit more of that luxury. Now, my husband is on 100% commission income, so that was what we were like, that's another reason why I was really freaked out to leave. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have this steady, stable income, and then, we're gonna like leave this steady income to go on basically being both of us self-employed." But anyway,
Is
it's
there
in
more?
terms of mental health and physical health and the health of our family, it's been really, really, really worth it. So these are all things you have to weigh out, and it is really scary. I know, like it is so terrifying to leave that teacher's salary because you feel so safe, right? Like you're making that money every month and it's guaranteed. You have your pension and it gives you this sense of security. Um, but for me, that sense of security came with it really wasn't safe physically because I was getting literally beat up by my students many years, like I was experiencing violence in the classroom firsthand. I was witnessing it. I was being, bullied and tormented by administrators. And I think that's a common theme for a lot of teachers. I know it wasn't just me now. And that's so my physical and mental health was like just in the toilet. And is that safe? Like, I mean, financially, maybe it was safe, but if it's costing you your health,
Oh,
is
shit.
that safe? I mean, I don't know. Like that's what you kind of have to think about and decide. So that's been my story, and I've been able to replace, I'd say about close to half of my income. But I also should say that of that big $100,000 I was making, I took home just over 50% after deduction. So now I can take home much more of my own income. So there's lots of things that you have to take into consideration. And in the Pit Pony video, Sharon Crawley talks about symptomatic spends. And those are things that you end up kind of frittering your money away on when you're in the classroom and you're not in a healthy place. You're suffering physically, mentally, you're in pain, you're depressed, all these things that come with, unfortunately, being a classroom teacher a lot of times is you end up spending more money on takeout food. I was actually ordering food from a local deli. I was having to I didn't have the energy to make dinner. So I was spending that much more money on food. I was sending my laundry out because I didn't have time to do laundry. I was like working
Mhm.
basically 24/7 and I had no time or energy. I was in so much physical pain too toward the end of my teaching career. Like it was I taught a special needs kindergarten class, which is really physically demanding. So that coupled with all of the mental stuff and all the mental baggage, I was like I could barely move at the end of the day. So yeah, I had to pay for my laundry to be sent out, pay for my meals to be cooked. I had, my husband had to take over a lot more of the household stuff, which left less energy for his work. So there's all these like things that contribute to my like it's not as black and white as $100,000 versus nothing. Do you know what I mean? It's not as black and white as that. So now, you know, now I can make my own food. I can clean the house. I can contribute more to my family. And that adds to our contributes to our finances in a really positive way. So there's lots of things to take into consideration. I know that's a lot of information, but are there any questions about that? Does that kind of answer your question, Katie?
Yeah, I think I just thank you for sharing. I think it's always helpful to hear like other people's experience because like you said, like when you're in the classroom, you were scared because there is so much comfort in a salary, right? Like you go to work, and wouldn't it be so simple if we went to work and then went home and then
Yeah.
just were able to shut off after that? But that not obviously is not the reality of being a teacher. But yeah, I just want to say thank you for being willing to share. Like I am definitely in a place where I feel pretty confident about making the jump, like that's what I need to do. But there's a gap between where my mindset and then also like so much teacher guilt, right? Like I feel, I don't know, that was kind of my only other question is like, how did you have it? Or were you like, wow, I'm just ready to put myself first? Because even though, I mean, I'm not getting assaulted in my classroom, I have a great administration, but then I really know it's time to go because I shouldn't be feeling like this if all of those other things are in place. So I guess like, how did you deal with the teacher guilt or like the emotional side of things, or how did you prepare yourself to like grieve a job that you had poured into for so long?
I think, well, that's actually a really good question too, because I left in December. So I left mid-year, and what happened was I transferred to another school, which was actually a really good school. And I had never been at a really good school. I didn't even know they existed. Like it was a really nice school. The kids were nice, the parents were nice, the administrator was lovely. I hadn't worked for a kind administrator in years, and I was like, "Oh my God." My teaching partner was amazing. So I had it like all going for me at this school. And I was teaching online, which I wanted to do because I physically couldn't teach in the classroom anymore. However, there was just little things like, for example, the school board would make me teach from the school online. And they gave me a Chromebook. I was like, what? Why can't you let me do this from home where I have proper equipment? Anyway, so it's like little things like that, and I was gonna plan on sticking it out for the whole year, but it was just sucking up so much of my time. And even though it was a wonderful place, like all the little silly school board nonsense stuff was just sucking my time and energy so much. I was like, I really want to grow my business, and I really want to see where I can take this, and I really want to have time for myself to just heal. So I walked away in December, and it was sad. The kids were crying, the parents were crying, I was crying, everyone was crying, and it was really sad. But I mean, I think it's kind of like what you said. I just had come to that point where I said, I can't do it anymore. Like I have to now put myself first, and I have to walk away. And then, yeah, it's uncomfortable for a little bit, but once you're free, whew, it's a good feeling. It's well worth it. Yeah. So thanks, Katie. That's a good question. Yes, Millie, what's your question?
Well, I was going to just add on to that because I was also a teacher in a private school. Um, I was not at the top of the tier, but I was getting worked, worked. I taught Spanish 1, Spanish 2, Spanish 3, pre-algebra and algebra. And I ended up becoming the executive registrar, and I still needed to have a side job for
Oh,
my bills. So, and I didn't, it was such a nice place to work though. Like you said, it was nice to work there. And then things started to change, and it just was exhausting because I, when I left, and even though school was over at 2:30, you have to make sure all the parents pick the kids up. And the parents that didn't pick up, you're stuck there calling them. They're not answering, they're late, whatever. And you end up getting home 5, 6 o'clock, and then you gotta grade all those papers. You gotta do
Like all the parts of the job that you didn't have time to do because you were teaching.
exactly, because in the school I was teaching, but then when do I do lesson plan? That was my weekend, that was my night. Sometimes, my husband be like, "You going to bed? It's like 12 at night." I'm like, because I gotta get up at 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
And it was that constant. And then when school was out, I was working because I worked for the Ritz. So when school was out, I was working. So the kids are like, oh, did you enjoy your break? No, I didn't have a break. Because when school is out, that's when everybody's taking a break. And that's when the hotel business, hospitality business is flowing. So it was like that for a couple of years. And then I finally, but honestly, Katie, I felt bad. I'm like, where are these kids going to be? Because I knew I was making a change. They was talking about how much they learned. Their parents were talking about how much they learned. The administration about how much they appreciate me and all of that. And I struggled and struggled and struggled. And finally, my son was like, "What are you doing? You're running yourself you're getting older and you're running yourself ragged. You need a break. You need to do something." And that's when I started nurturing minds. And true to Kelly, it wasn't making $10,000 a month. No, it wasn't that. It was a struggle. I opened the business in 2016 with that guilt. And you know what? You when you say, what did you do? I cried. I cried and prayed on it and just continue going forward. And then finally I was able to release. And Kelly had it perfect. I had time. I wasn't making money, but my sanity was coming back. My health was coming back. I was able to, when my mom got ill, I was able to take off, because lo and behold, when I had to take off from school, you got to get your lessons, more lesson plans, because the substitute got to get it, and you're still held responsible even though you're not there. Whereas with your own business, it's like, listen, I'm gonna be out for this week. If you have issues, you can text me, but it's a little bit more controllable. But definitely better for your sanity. Better. I'm on the process of still getting my income, but I was on the bottom tiers, so I think I already matched my income. But I need more because I lost my husband, and I'm a single. Like she said, I'm a single income now, and so now I have to get it going. And so now, and that's why I love a place like Tutor Hustle for Teachers, and the online tutor coach, and because it helps me solidify, like, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Katie, you could do it. And it's going to take time. So like you said, everybody's got their time. Everybody's got their budgets. Everybody's got their limits. But I can say it's a breath of fresh air.
Thank you both so much for sharing. That's so helpful.
Yeah, thanks, Millie. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you deserve your time. And if you're going to be putting that much time into something anyway, at least let it be your own, right?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
let it be your own business, because eventually there's an entrepreneurial process where you can start to delegate and release some of that. But in the teaching, you're never going to delegate or release any of it.
In teaching, you can be like operating at your highest self and be like, wow, I'm doing such a great job, but like your salary's capped and you're still working and you're still holding the guilt. But thank you. This has been super helpful. It's nice to have the community too, because like obviously that's a huge part of being a teacher, is like, I don't want to say misery loves company, but like, what about positivity loves company?
Yeah. It's so true.
Millie, can I just add something?
Yeah, go ahead, Katie.
So I'm still teaching, but my plan is to get out soon, although I'm older than all of you. But so this is actually my third career. But I was actually off sick on a leave for a year because I had cancer. And during that time, I had time to sort of look into things. This was just during COVID. And I just realized several things in the last year or so, that teaching is like a toxic relationship. You're kind of always like told you're not good enough, you're not doing enough, you got to do more, but you just don't have the supports, and there's no time to get the supports. And more of the supports are done on our own time, I find, at least where I am. I'm also in Toronto. So that really like struck a chord with me. The other things I did was I did some financial calculations while I was off, and realized that per hour, the number of hours I'm working a week, per hour, my pay was shockingly low, below minimum wage for the amount of hours I was working. And also, did I want to spend that much time in something that I know because I was on a leave that I was replaced immediately, and we're all replaceable. So do I need to like ruin my health, spend that many hours for something that has nothing, like there's no reward for me. It's not my own, and I can be replaced in a day. So all of that made me realize, and I have a friend who's doing the same thing. We're both sort of supporting each other, trying to transition out. But yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. Teaching is a lot. It's my third career. It's by far the hardest career.
Wow, thanks for sharing that, Katie. That is a really amazing perspective. Very, 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 very good to hear that. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's just when you have time to reflect, which we rarely do, right? We're just go, go, go. When you actually look back and reflect and talk to someone else. And this is why this is really helpful too, just to get other perspectives and, realize whether it's feasible or not to do something else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you definitely have to explore it, and that's certainly the first step is to do your research and explore it. But you're very brave to do that because it's like I said, it took me 10 years. I didn't even want to think about it for the first 8 of those years. So yeah, you're very brave to be even thinking about it and taking those first steps. And I really admire you. And I know you're all going to be a very big success. So it was so nice to chat with you this morning. This has been wonderful. And I'll see you again next Saturday. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Bye. Bye, everyone.